Hello and welcome back to Shade Tree Philosophy. I'm your host, David, and we're going to continue in our line study of the Gospel of Mark today. Last we ended on verse 24. We're going to pick it up on 25, and I'm just going to start reading from there. And when ye stand praying, forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. But if ye do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive you your trespasses. Now, what does that sound like? It's congruent with the Lord's Prayer, certainly. An interesting point about the Gospel of Mark is that it doesn't have the Lord's Prayer. But it does have this, which is, similar and teaching the same thing. Which is, when you come before the Lord, if you have something against a brother, here it's commanded to go down and make it right. Now, that's tough to do, especially like if someone's passed away. But you can forgive them in your heart. You can deal with it. A lot of people go to psychologists to bring up these things and talk about them and get them off of their hearts, and that's a good thing as long as it leads to resolution, even if it's just within your heart. And so forgiving removes a big burden out of your life and out of your heart and off of your back. Think about how many people can't sleep at night because of the tension in their neck or have headaches. And I will say that the Lord has blessed me with ability to sleep, and I do. I'm not blowing my own horn, but I believe that by examining yourself every day and by trying to not have things weigh on your heart, it's easier to sleep. And so I have found that I prefer that over, tossing and turning and grinding my teeth and over something that's happened to me from someone or something. But yeah, here he's saying, if you have something against your brother and you're trying to come before the Lord, it's causing problems, and it may even affect your prayers. You may be asking for things from the Lord that that doesn't please Him, and these are the reason why you're asking for whatever these hypothetical things are. Could be because of your angst, not because of your desire for purity and to be aligned with the Creator and our Maker and our Father, who is in heaven. All right, so anyway, verse 27. And they come again to Jerusalem, so this is another day. And as he was walking in the temple, there come to him the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the Sanhedrin, who were the ruling kind of a congress of group of people who were made up of a lot of different folks. And it says the elders, the Pharisees, and the chief priests. The chief priests were usually Sadducees. The Pharisees were in the Sanhedrin, and also the elders, which could refer to, I guess, to the scribes, and also to a group of people who were called Herodians, and they had a lot of connection to Herod the Great, and so the Herodians were kind of a different group. They weren't a religious sect or they weren't a political party, but they did align with the rule of the Herodian rule. At this time, it wasn't Herod the Great, it was Herod Antipas, I think, is the Antipas, and who ruled Galilee, who had a lot of influence still. There were two other brothers, so I don't know how those guys fit in, but anyway, the Herodians kind of aligned with Herod Antipas and the ruling authority that he had, and they liked the idea of not having a Messiah. They liked the idea of the way it was going and to keep it Hellenized. And keep things, the temple running as it was, and so they liked the way things were going, the Herodians. And so the elders, I'm assuming that means, people of importance among the Jewish people who were I'm sure they had to be aligned with one of those sects. But I don't know. Sectarianly, I don't know, elders would refer to a sectarian group or just people of greater age who were respected. But the chief priests, we know who those were. This was the Sadducees. And the scribes were people who dealt with the law, the lawyers. So, but anyway, they came to him and they say unto him, by what authority do you do these things? And who gave you the authority to do these things? These things I'm sure are talking about, running the people out of the temple, teaching and openly how people should behave before the Lord. And they're asking why what authority, because authority meant a lot to these guys. Authority usually meant by what rabbi or what teaching gives you the authority, or who do you know, or how do you know what you know, and where's it coming from? What authority do you have to teach these things? Because they're not convinced that Jesus is a prophet. At least they don't like what he's saying. And so this is a challenge. And so his answer is pretty stinging. He doesn't answer them with a yes or no, but he does turn the tables on them. He puts them in the position of what they're trying to put him in. Which by asking him, by what authority, but he's turning the table on them, and he's saying, look, you're asking me by what authority I do these things, and I'm going to give you the answer if you can answer my question. All right, so and these are his words. He said, and Jesus answered and saith unto them, I will also ask you one question, and answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men? Answer me. The baptism of John, well, we know what that was about. It was a baptism of repentance and turning back to God. This may have a double meaning, but anyway, here he's challenging them in front of the people, I'm sure, because this is an open space in the temple. And so I'm sure there's other people who he was preaching to right at that point who are listening. And so he brings up the baptism of John. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, he will say, well, why did you not believe him? Well, apparently they didn't believe him because they didn't do anything about it. They let John be captured and killed. But they reasoned in themselves, saying, what shall we say from heaven? Let me start again. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, he will say, why then did you not believe him? But if we say of men, they feared the people, for all the people considered John that he was a prophet indeed. In other words, there was no question in the mind of the people. A prophet indeed. There was no question in their mind that he was a prophet. There was no question in Jesus' mind that there was a prophet. There was a lot of question in their mind because they were put on the spot by John. Remember? When they came to him, he kind of rejected the elders and the Pharisees and called them names. I believe it was snakes. Brood of vipers, that kind of thing. And so they didn't like that one little bit. And they didn't like John, and they didn't like Jesus because they had sent out, remember, people from the Sanhedrin or from Jerusalem, it says. People from Jerusalem, scribes and in that case, Pharisees, to challenge him before. So they had been challenging Jesus all along. And John. Because think about when a prophet comes along, usually the prophets were dealing with trying to bring the temple back and trying to bring the people back to the heart of God. So there was usually some form of hypocrisy that they were dealing with. And they were So the prophets were usually unpopular with the ruling people at the time because they were the ones that they were dealing with. Even Naaman, which is an Old Testament prophet, came to David when he was unfaithful with Bathsheba and caused the death of Uriah the Hittite. It was the prophet that came to David to deal with to have David recognize his sin and where he stood in front of God because of it. So here it is. Jesus is in the temple and he is challenging these guys. So they weren't going to answer him either way, as we'll see. And they answered and said unto Jesus, we cannot tell. we can't tell. And these are the rulers and leaders. The people didn't have a problem, but they could not tell. In other words, their hearts were hard. And Jesus, answering, saith unto them, neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things. I think the reason why Jesus wasn't going to go into great details because they didn't believe he had the authority of God. They believed that he was someone there to, I guess, change the status quo. And they feared him. They feared him because they thought maybe he would cause a ruckus with I'm sure the Romans, that something might leak over into that and cause them to crack down on the Jewish leadership. But also, they feared the people. And Jesus stood with the people, not with the leadership. And the people in him stood with the truth. All right, so we're going to move into Mark 11 now. Mark 12. We're ending Mark chapter 11, going into Mark 12. So he began to speak unto them by parables. Now Jesus is using parables again. It's been a minute. A certain man planted a vineyard, and he set a hedge about it, and he digged a place for the wine fat, and built a tower, and lent it out, he let it out to husbandmen, people who were going to care for it, and went into a far country. So this is an absent owner who's not there, but has correspondence and has plenty of contact. But it takes him sending someone to speak with him because he's in a far-off country. All right, and at the season he sent his husbandman a servant that he might receive from the husbandmen, the fruit of the vineyard. And they caught him, and they beat him, and they sent him away empty. Well, isn't that a fine situation? So this guy's sending people to a vineyard that he had set up, but he put these guys in authority, and now he's going to collect some of his fruit, and rather than do the right thing, they beat the guy. And they sent him away without anything. And again he sent them another servant, and at him they cast stones, which wounded him in the head, and sent him away shamefully handled. So, now they're throwing stuff. Don't even let him get close to the property. Keeping them at, far away. They're not even laying hands on him. They're just throwing stones as he comes his way. And again, he sent another. And him they killed. And many others. Beating some and killing some. So, I don't know why he keeps sending. Maybe he's just hoping. But man, it's costing these guys' lives in beatings. So anyway, but I think the point here is he didn't immediately just come down and just destroy them. He attempted to do, on many occasions, what was the original idea, which was to set up the temple, the vineyard here, and to have these people run it correctly and for him to benefit from it. All right, I'm on verse 6. Having yet, therefore, one son, his well-beloved, he sent him also last unto them, saying, they will receive my son. But those husbandmen said among themselves, this is the heir. Come, let's kill him, and then his inheritance shall be ours. That's just pure rebellion over and above. Of course, all this has been. This is rebellion, and now this is usurping the vineyard. This is my will be done, right? Among the leadership of the vineyard here. Now we know the vineyard is talking about the people of Israel and the temple. And what shall therefore the Lord of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the husbandman, and he will give the vineyard unto others. And have ye not read this scripture? The stones the builder rejected has become the head of the corner. And this was the Lord's doing, and it was marvelous, and it is marvelous in our eyes. So, Jesus, of course, has said all along that when he comes to Jerusalem, he will be taken by the elders, and he will be beaten and abused, and then he'll be killed. And Jesus knows what's going on, and this is part of it. And so he's already talked about what has happened in the past, and these are the prophets who are, of course, the people that have been sent to the vineyard, and they've been abused and killed. And now Jesus is the Son, and he's come to the vineyard, and they're going to do the same with him. And the idea is to keep it all to themselves, isn't it? Because isn't that what they've already been doing? They may be performing the sacrifices and the rituals that go along with the temple, but they're getting rich, and they prefer the status quo. They don't want to change. And they sought to lay hold on him, but feared the people. So the thing that was marvelous in the Lord's eyes was terrible in their eyes. It was the end of their way of running things. And they sought to lay hold on him, but they feared the people, for they knew that he had spoken the parable against them, and they left him and went their way.